With the conclusion of the 2023 NHL entry draft, there seems to be a lot of hype for who's going to be the top prospect for the 2024 draft. Everyone wants to know who will be next year's first overall pick, with a lot of projections of having Macklin Celebrini being the top consensus first overall pick. But sometimes it can be hard to maintain at that level for a long period of time. Things change throughout the season, either that being unable to progress to the next level or having another player outcompete you. In this video, I want to look over NHL players in recent memory that were once considered the consensus #1 pick in the draft class, but only for them to drop during their draft year or during the draft. Everyone has already talked about the story of Angelo Esposito and Sean Day, as those players were prime examples of players who never maintained a spot in the NHL. But how about players who were still going to make the NHL? I want to look over players who were still projected to be NHL regulars in the league and to see if they were justified in getting picked lower than expected.
The Seattle Kraken are proud to select Shane Wright.
Coming into the 2022 NHL entry draft, there was a consensus that Shane Wright was going to be the first overall pick. However, something that the media often does is that they like to create false narratives of a possibility that the consensus first overall pick wasn't actually going to be picked, such as the time in 2019 Kaapo Kakko outplayed Jack Hughes in the Worlds, but the majority of fans knew Jack Hughes was still going to be selected first overall. However, this year seemed a little different, as it seemed that numerous sources told us there was a legit chance that Shane Wright could not be selected first overall. When draft day came, there was a split to see what could happen, and lo to behold, the media was right. Shane Wright would not get selected first, nor second, nor even third. He would get taken 4th overall by the Seattle Kraken. So why did he drop so much? Some arguments made against Wright was that his production in the second half saw him as a passive player. Another contributing factor came in his interviews, as he was described as arrogant and not humble, as he truly believed he should have been selected first overall. Another big factor can also be that the teams drafting them were based on positional need. The drama surrounding Shane Wright during the 22-23 season was to see if he truly was ready to play in the NHL, as his performance when he was in the lineup was questionable, as his first 7 games in the NHL only saw him produce 1 point and eventually was sent down to the AHL. In his final game back, he would actually score a goal, ironically against the Montreal Canadiens. Not wanting to burn the first year of his contract, they would send him down to the minor leagues in the OHL. It is far too early to decide whether or not the teams who selected before Shane Wright made the right decision, as a few of them have not played in the league yet. We shall see where Wright stands in a couple of years.
Fascinating fall from prominence. So he makes Finland's World Junior team, he puts up 3 points, and then he comes back this year, he doesn't make the team. Where is he sitting right now?
Aatu Raty, at the age of 17 years old, was projected at one point as the first overall pick, playing amongst men in Finland, putting up 4 points in 12 games. However, his draft year would see some regression in his game, with some comments saying his speed and skating had not improved, but the silver lining being he had the creativity and was a big center who had the potential to go far. He would end up getting selected 52nd overall by the New York Islanders. He would eventually make his NHL debut in the 22-23 season, where he would play 12 games for the New York Islanders, scoring 2 goals in that stretch. He, however, would also be assigned in the minors and would get traded at the deadline to the Vancouver Canucks, where he would play 3 games, producing 1 assist. There is still a lot of potential in his game, as he still qualifies as a rookie this upcoming season, so we shall see where he stands in a couple years.
With our first selection in the 2017 entry draft, the New Jersey Devils are proud to welcome Nico Hischier.
At the beginning of Nolan Patrick's draft year, he was projected to go first overall. However, he would suffer injuries which prevented additional growth in his game, as in the same year, he would undergo 2 sports hernia surgeries, having a limited production coming into the draft. Meanwhile, another player was quickly rising in the draft, with Nico Hischier as the potential first overall pick. And so began the battle of Nico or Nolan. The impression both these players gave from most scouts was that Nolan had the higher floor, but that also Nico had the higher ceiling. We all know how it would pan out. The Devils will go on to select Nico Hischier, while Nolan Patrick fell to number 2. So how has his career panned out? It started out promising, as his first 2 years in the league saw him make steady progression, producing an average of 30 points. Unfortunately, that would be the last time we would see a healthy Nolan Patrick, as he would sustain multiple injuries from concussions, upper body injuries, and even COVID, which really stagnated his career. As of making this video, he is an unrestricted free agent. His career has been derailed to the point where it will be difficult for him to reach his potential. He was forced to sit out in the 22-23 season due to a concussion he sustained the previous season. Given his injury record, it is still unknown if he will sign for another team this upcoming season.
New Jersey Devils are very proud to select from Skellefteå, Sweden, Adam Larsson.
This will be the steal of the draft. At 4, this kid is the steal of the draft.
Up next, we have Adam Larsson. A year prior to his draft, he had tied the single-season record for number of points scored amongst defensemen under the age of 18 in what's now called the Swedish Hockey League. Playing amongst men at that age was very impressive, as it showed he was ready to play in the NHL. Coming into his draft year, this put him as the top prospect in the league. However, his development would stint, as he would have an underwhelming 9 points. Still decent numbers for an 18-year-old, but still some regression any way you see it. This would cause his draft stock to drop while other players were rising. He would end up dropping to 4th overall and was considered to be the steal of the draft. So how did he perform in the NHL? Immediately, he would show why he was NHL ready, playing in over 20 minutes a night and having a skilled defensive hockey IQ. Unfortunately, his production was stalled, as he would never produce more than 24 points in a season. His career would also be tied to an infamous 1-for-1 trade for Taylor Hall, where Taylor would end up winning the Hart Trophy and leaving Larsson having underwhelming results. He would eventually mature as a reliable defensive defenseman and began his 3rd chapter in the league when he was selected by the expansion draft Seattle Kraken. This past season saw all-time highs in his career with 33 points and an impressive plus-minus of 27, playing top defensive minutes for the team and proving to be a good veteran. He would never live up to the expectations thrown upon him during his draft year, but he has grown to be a solid defensive player in the NHL.
The Philadelphia Flyers are proud to select from the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, Sean Couturier.
Good luck to a lot of the defense in the Eastern Conference of the National Hockey League.
Coming in the same draft, we have Sean Couturier. At one point in his young career, he had the potential to be a player with the first overall selection and was in direct competition with Adam Larsson. As a 16-year-old in the QMJHL, he would put up 96 points and an astounding plus 62. However, during his draft year, his stock would drop. Contracting mononucleosis during the season stunted his growth, both physically and as a hockey player, losing 10 to 15 pounds while recovering, worrying scouts of his physical readiness in the league, which he would then begin to drop in the rankings. When he recovered, he still performed with decent improvement in his game and was still a top 5 consensus pick. So what made it even more of a story was that he would end up dropping to the 8th overall selection, as the Flyers were argued to have the steal in the top 10. When scouted, he was projected to be a strong offensive player with shutdown defensive capabilities. So would his skill carry over? Absolutely. He would be praised for his solid two-way game and was always in contention for the Selke Trophy, winning one as the best defensive forward in the 2019-20 season. His presence with the team was always felt, and when he was out of the lineup, his team would struggle as well. It was felt when he sustained consecutive injuries and eventually had to undergo 2 back surgeries, missing the entirety of the 22-23 season. As of recording this video, he is expected to be ready for the 23-24 season. But with the Flyers now officially in a rebuild, we shall see where he will be in the upcoming future.
With the number 1 selection, we select from the London Knights, Rick Nash.
In 2002, the consensus number 1 pick was in no doubt to be Bouwmeester. He was touted as a complete player and projected to be one of the best offensive-defensive players available. For 2 straight years, he was ranked the top prospect of the 2002 draft. With the Florida Panthers having the first overall pick, it was given that they were going to select the young Canadian defenseman. However, there would be a huge deal to be made on draft day. The Columbus Blue Jackets had their eyes on Rick Nash, a top 3 player coming into the draft. Not wanting to take the risk, they would decide to make a deal to swap picks with the Florida Panthers. The trade ended up working out for both teams as Florida would still acquire their player at 3rd overall. So how well did Bouwmeester perform in the NHL? He would begin his career struggling to produce offense in his game, producing a total of 36 points in his first 2 seasons. After the NHL lockout, he would produce all-time highs, averaging 41 points in a span of 4 years, even getting top 15 votes as the best defenseman and 2 All-Star games. His career afterwards would see him regress offensively, but was still a productive player in the league. He wouldn't make a playoff appearance for a decade, and once he was with the Blues, he would get a shot for the Stanley Cup, winning one in the 2018-19 season, 17 years post-draft. His career as a 3rd overall pick is underwhelming, but he was a solid blue liner for his entire career, as he has won many awards outside the NHL as well, being part of the Triple Gold Club, one of 30 players to ever achieve this feat. And that'll be it for today's video. Who were some other NHL players you can recall that were projected to be first but dropped during the draft year? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy these kinds of videos and would like to watch more, feel free to like and subscribe for more content like this in the future. We're on the road to 1K. Every sub helps the channel grow. I want to give a quick shout out to Reddit r/hockey. As I was doing research for this topic, I actually asked the question and it blew up. Nearly 300,000 views and over 300 comments. I want to thank everyone who replied to the discussion. I hope to see you again in the near future.